We're 5 mythically immortal players with over 40,000 matches of experience, and today we will teach you 3 mechanics that every player needs to master. The best thing about this is, you don't need hours of practice to implement them into your gameplay. No, you can use them right away after you watch this whole video. So let's start with the first super important mechanic: skill upgrades. Every time your hero levels up, you gain 1 skill point to upgrade one of your skills. Yeah, okay, everyone knows that. But did you know that the recommended skill upgrades are not always right?
What?
Let's take Alice for an example. Usually you would always prioritize your ultimate and then upgrade either your first or your second skill, right? Well, in Alice's case, it's actually a bad idea to upgrade her ultimate past level 1. Why is that? Her mana usage is more than doubled with every upgrade, and while her damage becomes higher as well, because of the extremely high mana usage, she can't stay in a team fight for a very long time, which is what she's supposed to do. She's not a burst hero that quickly goes in and out. She's supposed to be played like a fighter who non-stop hunts down enemies and give them no break from your sucking skills. What? In the end, you even deal higher damage just over a longer period of time. So only upgrade her ultimate once you reach level 14 and 15. This is crazy, right? The recommended upgrade for the first 2 skills can also change. If you're going to play the Mosquito, you get your first skill Tornado Strike at level 1 to clear your blue buff quickly, but after leveling this skill up, you need to prioritize your second skill over her first skill. Every upgrade will reduce the energy consumption, and this extra energy helps you to spam her cables much more often. Her damage mainly comes from the flying speed and the passive anyway, so instead of giving her extra damage per skill usage, it's better to have more flexibility with your cables. This also applies to Martis. You're getting his second skill at level 1 to clear minion waves and jungle creeps, and its damage upgrades is even stronger compared to his first skill. But the benefit of upgrading your first skill still outweighs the difference in damage. How so? Martis is a fighter with great sustainability, and his deadly blow comes from his ultimate's true damage. Upgrading his first skill gives him a lower cooldown, which can be used to abuse his passive more often and keeps his stacks up for a longer time. Another example is Melissa. Unlike Moskov, who prioritizes Blink skill to increase his firepower and attack speed, this Voodoo Master uses her doll to put a curse on her enemy. If you upgrade her first skill, her mana consumption will be reduced every time you level them up. While if you upgrade your second skill, the mana consumption will be increased after every upgrade. So, if you level up the wrong skill, you will drain her mana very quickly in the early game. And since Melissa shines the most in the early game where she can harass her enemies non-stop, you take the biggest strength away from her. Let me know in which order you level up the skills of your main, and let's move on to the second and even more important mechanic: using the real best build and use the correct build path. Now, this is a real game changer that boosts your win rate by 10% easily. I'm not kidding. Buying certain items in the early game can boost your hero's performance by 69%, and using the real best build boosts your hero's performance even higher. There is nothing more important than using the correct build, building the correct items at the right time, and also use the right emblem. So what can you do to instantly implement that, even when you don't know what each item does? Firstly, you need to stop copying the builds from the pro build section. Sure, it's pretty convenient just to copy them without spending the extra calories of thinking, but in every game you meet different enemies and therefore you need different items against them. Most heroes commonly rely on 2 to 3 items that they need in every game. Claude, for example, needs Demon Hunter Sword, Golden Staff and Corrosion Scythe no matter what. But the last 2 item slots are supposed to be for adjustable items. If your enemy has many tanky heroes, you need Malefic Roar as it penetrates through the heavy armor. If the enemy has physical burst heroes, you need Wind of Nature as the active skill negates all physical damage for 2 seconds. When the game goes over 20 minutes, you should get immortality, because if you die, you have a respawn time of over 60 seconds. Against burst mages, you need either Rose Gold Meteor for the shield and magic defense, or even get Athena shield as a full counter item. If your allies don't build any anti-heal items while facing an Estes because they're headless chickens, you need to build 𝐶𝐲𝐬𝐽 so your ult can compete with the heal from him. We have a detailed guide about how all attack and magic items work, and we will release an updated version soon, so subscribe to not miss that. So yeah, this is your way to instantly implement this. Learn what every item does. Another important thing to notice about the pro builds is that they don't show you anything about the build path you should use. For example, is it really smart to build Demon Hunter Sword right away on Claude, considering it's ranked as the 4th most expensive attack item in the game? DHS is a luxury item and not as efficient in the early game, even though DHS is one of the core equipments for this monkey boy. Unless you're really dominating your counterpart on the lane, which to be honest rarely happens as Claude is pretty weak in the early game, you should aim for a much cheaper and better option like Swift Crossbow. Their damage output is around the same in the early game if you compare them side by side. Why is that? DHS passive damage becomes higher the more HP the enemy has, as it deals damage based on the enemy's current HP. In the early game though, everyone has low HP, so the damage isn't really that high. But it becomes very deadly in the late game, especially against high HP tanks. And to round it up, Swift Crossbow is part of the building path of Corrosion Side, which means you can make the upgrade after getting DHS and Golden Staff much faster. If you want to run down what is the real best build for your main, make sure to become an MLG family member today. Another example are the roamers who blindly build Dominance Ice Cream as their first item. Sure enough, no one will bat an eye towards its broken passive. They are the bread and butter to every tank main after all. The life drain and attack speed debuff counters a lot of enemy heroes, but you should still observe the enemy's team first before building it. Did they bring heroes with powerful heals and regen effects? Do they have many physical or magic damage heroes? As a roamer, you don't have a lot of gold, especially in the early game. So instead of wasting it to build luxury items, consider to buy smaller items that give you way better defense stats for your money. Magic damage is generally higher in the early game because every hero only have 50 magic defense as the base stat. So building Dominance Ice Cream early doesn't help you to survive against magic damage. It doesn't even provide you with extra HP. So focus on a magic defense item like Magic Resistance Cloak first, as this item will help you to deal with their early game pokes. You can also get Steel Leg Plates, as this gives you 45 physical defense for 530 gold, which is a fourth of Dominance Ice Cream's price. Or Dreadnought Armor when you play against physical damage heroes who use a lot of skills. For example, Clint or Saber. We also have a full guide where we cover all of the component items and how to use them, which you should definitely check out after this video. But first, we need to talk about the battle spells. Everybody already have one or two favorite battle spells for the main. This extra skill can be picked before the game begins, so in a ranked match, especially after you reached Epic or above, check out both your team's and the enemy's lineup. Instead of spamming one spell all the time, adjust the battle spell according to the draft of both teams. Don't get me wrong, Flicker is a great spell. It adds extra flexibility to your attack and defensive mechanism and is especially useful for heroes that has no dash on their own. But it won't work in every single game.
Oh shit, here we go again.
If your enemies are, for example, using strong CC effects and powerful stoppers like Atlas or Cho, you might need to consider Purify as your battle spell instead of Flicker. These two are a pain in the ass on the battlefield if you can't escape their CCs. Atlas can gather your allies into one spot and freeze your whole team with a single ult, and Cho can just put one of you into the grave with a single combo, especially the squishy heroes. To break their CC, Purify works much better compared to Flicker. Purify can be also used to deny pickoffs from Franco's hook or Minceta's spear. Just make sure you have a quick reaction time before getting pulled into their lap. You can even use it to remove Yuzong's or Wonwon's hard-earned stacks. Talking about Minceta, after the revamp, a lot of people have been banning him on rank. His ultimate can counter a lot of dashing rats on the meta, and that's why people began to fear his presence. It only takes one single ultimate, and it denies this Hayabusa's escape route. But little did they know that Min's attack can be countered by one battle spell, Sprint. Next time you find yourself fighting against this uncle, slap this sprint button after he uses his ultimate on you, and with your slow immunity you can easily escape his poking circle. Then there are also those heroes who benefit from his spell as they work together with their skills. One example would be Hanabi's shield passive. I saw a lot of Hanabi players who are still not abusing the ability of Aegis. She gains CC immunity as long as her shield is active. So instead of using Inspire or Flicker, you need to use Aegis, as this gives you almost the same effect as Purify gives you, with the added shield of Aegis, of course. You have to treat it like an emergency Purify, but with extra sustainability. But you can also abuse it further, as you can stack multiple shields. Let's say you're using your first skill on top of Aegis with the help of Angela's ultimate. Then your Hanabi will turn into an CC immunity god, and there is no way to stop her attacks. If this freaking Angela would actually use her ult, I mean, what the frick are you doing, mate? So, as we're dead, we can do some math. If you would count the shields she would get from all those buffs, we would gain a shield of 4500 HP, which is insanely high. And this calculation could be even higher depending on your items, emblems, and positioning. More attack means higher shield, especially if your Angela built a lot more magic power. Positioning means you keep a safe distance while attacking, so life drain effects like Dominance Ice Cream won't affect your shields. And you can also build Rose Gold Meteor for an extra shield. Now check out the mentioned low tier item guide, as this will truly boost your win rate into another stratosphere. See you over there!